Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. So if you're a regular here, I know this is a lot to take in. This won't become a consistent filming venue for me, but I wanted to check out a couple other places in my apartment because currently the only place I have to film is in my living room, and the lighting can be very finicky and cause me a lot of problems. And I recently, as in just yesterday, got this gorgeous new headboard and bed frame that my parents got me as a Christmas present, and I wanted to try filming in front of it because I do have a full-length tripod, and this way I have windows over here and they can bounce off my wall and give me lighting, and if I end up needing to, I can end up adding another light over here. So that's just a bit of behind the booktuber info for you. Then a couple other things. Number one, yes, I did check out a couple tutorials for doing cutoff shirts. I have this beautiful tattoo. A lot of you ask me what it says. It says, "It is well." This is my grandmother's favorite hymn. And it's a tattoo I got in honor of her a couple years ago. And, you can see it partway in some shirts. But I also have these super cute bras with these fun little things on the side. And I was like, since it's going around Booktube and Instagram that people are cutting off their shirts, I was like, I'll do it. I tested it out on my gym shirts though. So I have these ones that have some fun saying, and this one works for Booktube stuff, says free hugs. Before I was testing it out on my fandom shirts because I didn't want to ruin them. And then I may have spent about $80 today buying a few different shirts that I'm going to cut up when they get here. But anyway, okay, that was a really long intro. This is going to be a recommendation video for a trope that I go back and forth on. Obviously you can tell it's going to be Surprise Baby, and I do want to do a couple of qualifiers because this is one that people have asked me for a lot. People really like this trope, but it's one for me that I thought I didn't like. But for me, the reason why is that there's a difference between hidden baby and surprise baby, and that's where I kind of want to make a delineation. I am not a fan of a woman deliberately hiding a child from someone, unless it's a mafia situation or a captor-captive situation. I've seen that where I've been okay with it. Again, there's always an exception to every trope, right? We say this, even the cheating trope, there's exceptions to it where I like it. But in general, I don't like hidden baby. So that's why when people ask, they're like, Jen, I really want recommendations for these. I'm like, I don't like that trope though, so I can't make a recommendation video for you if I don't like the trope, right? However, I had realized this year that there were situations where I did like babies. And for me, it ended up the difference between a surprise baby, where I'll get into the two different ways that I like surprise baby, but the way that I don't like is I don't like hidden baby, where a woman discovers she's pregnant and either she thinks the man doesn't want a kid so she doesn't tell him, or they get separated for some reason and she knows who the person is and decides not to tell them. So anyway, where it's you're having a baby and you either don't discuss it with them at all or you choose not to tell them because you think that they won't want the baby. That makes me really uncomfortable and I don't like it. Now, the ways where I like surprise baby and what all of these recs are going to be today is either we had a one-night stand and a baby came about, and you either do know the person's name and we talk about it pretty much right away, or they have a one-night stand and there was a hidden identity situation, and so we're not able to find the man until a significant amount of time later, and then it feels like a hidden baby to him, but it really was a surprise. And then the woman had the wrong name or didn't really know the person and was not able to find them, and then they run into each other later, okay? I've spent 5 minutes giving you the premise of how I feel, but I did want to delineate and why you maybe won't see a ton of recommendations for this. I only have 8 of them for this one because for me, secret baby is a very specific situation that I like. I don't just like all hidden children, okay? So the first one I want to talk about, and some of these I did read a while back, so I don't have the names of all the characters. You know me, I read 700 books last year, but I did read all of these books last year. The first one is One Moment Please by Amy Daws. This is part of a series. I believe there's 4 books in the series now, but this one is really funny because this one is a one-night stand situation, and it's a grumpy doctor, and this woman, they have a one-night stand, and then she ends up coming into the ER like a month later, and she has like, I can't remember if she has like stomach poisoning or something like that, but he's the ER doctor that she comes in to see, and they're like, oh my god, hi, wow, I had a one-night stand with you, it was really hot, and then we never like connected again. And he does the blood tests for her to see like what's in her system, and he discovers that she's pregnant. So it's a crazy first scene of them reconnecting, because not only is it a surprise baby, but he's the one telling her that she's pregnant with his. So this book, I believe I gave this like a 4-star, because there were some like miscommunication issues not having to do with the pregnancy later on that I wasn't a huge fan of. But I just loved it for the setup of this one. It is so clever, and I absolutely loved it. There's another book that has a situation kind of like this, but you can DM me if you want to know what that book is. But for that one, it's a like surprise part of the story. Whereas like all these ones that I'm talking to you about, the baby part of it is like in the premise of the book. So I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything for you. But there is another book too where a doctor is the one who tells her that it's his kid he's having. But anyway, but I just thought this one was so clever, and I love that it was kind of like a grumpy sunshine one. And then they're both just stunned, you know, and she tells him, and she's like, you're joking, right? And he's just like, no. And when were you going to tell me? And she's like, dude, number 1, didn't know you were a doctor here. Number 2, you are the one telling me I'm pregnant right now. I had no idea that I was pregnant. So I just really thought that was a unique setup, because how crazy that like he's the doctor there and everything. So next there is The Goal by Elle Kennedy. This is a new adult book. This is part of the off-campus series. Is this one part of the off-campus series? This one is, again, like it is a one-night stand type of situation, and they're both in college, and it's one of those where they try to decide if they want to raise the baby together while not being together, even though it's really clear to everybody that they want to be together. But because for me, it was like, because they're college students, they feel like they shouldn't be together yet, but they like want to be together the whole time. So this was actually my like least favorite in the series, but it was a surprise baby that like we know about it going into the book, because at the end of the previous book, the character, like, he tells his friends like, this woman's pregnant with my baby. And so it was such a crazy cliffhanger for that book, and I was so glad that the next one was out, because it was just like we'd seen these two kind of circling each other, and then that's the start of the story, is we know that they got pregnant, and then we're going to see what's going to happen with it. So that was still pretty fun. I mean, if you love Elle Kennedy, you've probably already read this one, but I just wanted to mention it because, again, I like the ones where we get to see the pregnancy happen for a good portion of the book, or else we get to see them interacting with a baby for a good portion of the book, and not just kind of like thrown in at the end, and it's like a reason for our characters to be together. That's not my favorite thing. And then there is A Lie for a Lie by Helena Hunting. This is actually the book that I read that made me realize the difference between Hidden Baby and Secret Baby. This is the first one in her, I can't remember what this trilogy is called, but I loved all 3 of them. This was like a spin-off from the Pucked series. And this one was this hockey player. Every summer he goes to Alaska for a month to go fishing with his brother. And this time around, his brother is about to have a child, and his wife has gestational diabetes, and their father actually died from complications of diabetes. So his brother decides to not go fishing with him and stay home with his wife, which is a good decision. But he ends up on a plane with this girl who is going to do like a research assignment out in Alaska. And so she's rented this little cabin, and it ends up being that they travel all the way from Seattle to Alaska, like on the same planes and everything. And he ends up dropping her off at the cabin, and it is horrible. Like, it's nothing like it was described. There are mice. There's barely any electricity. There is only a landline that works. She doesn't have any internet connection or anything. And he's staying in this mansion just a mile down the beach. And so they've just met each other that day during traveling, but he already has a connection with this woman, and she doesn't know who he is. Doesn't know that he's this star hockey player because she doesn't watch sports. And I forgot to say too, like, the start of this book is the present time where he's recognizing this woman at a aquarium because she is like, again, she's like a biologist or something like that. And he's there with his teammates for a kid's birthday party, and he recognizes her as his like dream woman from this month that they lived in Alaska together. And then we flash back to how it all happens. And it has been 18 months since then, or I can't remember how many months, but the child from this situation has already been born and is a few months old. So I think it's been like 13 months, 15 months, something like that. And so he walks up to her and is just like, oh my God, I never thought I'd see you again, because of situations where he had to leave under kind of an emergency because his brother's wife does end up going into labor while he's there. And he doesn't leave his phone number for her for some reason. And so she has no idea who he is until, so this is a case of like, it kind of merges the two. Like, I think she does figure out who he is, but not until, like, it's like an accident. Like, she sees him on a magazine or something, and by then she's already like having the baby and everything, and it's a thing. So anyway, this one, it didn't go into hidden baby for me, because once she finds out he's a celebrity, she's like, if I reach out to him and introduce myself again, he's going to think I'm after his money, right? You know, because he's always been so careful with this. But they genuinely fell in love up there and then could not get in contact with each other. It was crazy. So I talked about that one for a long time, but I absolutely adored that one. I love how she tells him. I love how she introduces him to his child, and I love how they go about, you know, because he's very clear. He's like, I absolutely want to get to know my child, but make no mistake, I've been looking for you this whole time, because he didn't know how to get in contact with her either. So yeah, it was so good. I love that one. And that's the one that really showed me. I was like, you know, I think maybe I do like secret baby or surprise baby. I just don't like when it's hidden, but the way that it was hidden, I completely understand how it happened, right? So next, there is Only You by Melanie Harlow. And now this one is very interesting because the surprise baby is with someone else. So I did not know how this was going to work. So this is Melanie Harlow. This is part of her, I can't remember what this trilogy is called, but they all have like Only or Love in the title. They're very romantic books. And this one is about, it's kind of sort of going to be an enemies to lovers. And they're neighbors. And they have kind of this like, not like enemy thing going, but a little bit of like a thing going back and forth between the two of them. And they are friends though, but so maybe they aren't enemies. They must be friends, but it's like kind of an antagonistic friendship, but like they care about, I don't know. But anyway, they definitely are attracted to each other. And so he's a high-powered like lawyer. He's like a divorce attorney. And I can't remember what she does, but they'll have like dinner together sometimes. So she is over at his house one night and they're like having dinner, and then his doorbell rings and there's a baby left on his doorstep. And it turns out that a woman that he had dated briefly had a baby, didn't tell him about it. She was going to try to do it on her own. And then she's actually having some like postpartum depression, and she doesn't just want to, you know, put the child in foster care or like hand her over to the system. So she literally drops the baby on his doorstep and like runs away. So this is a surprise baby in a different way. It gets dropped off at the dad's place. And so his neighbor, she ends up offering to help. And so she ends up like almost kind of like, she doesn't move in, but she's available to help him take turns with the shift. He's going from this complete bachelor lifestyle to being a dad of a little girl, and it is so adorable. And then he doesn't want to take advantage of her help, and like not realizing that it's because she loves you that she's willing to help like this, and that there really is something more. And he's like, could I ask her to just be a mom like this? And then this woman didn't just completely give up her parental rights to him. So is she going to come back and try to get her daughter back? And so there's all of these feelings and stuff. The next one I'll just mention really quickly. This was just on my list as like in my trope list. I had put it as a secret baby. But it wasn't one that necessarily was like the top of my list, but I thought it was really cute because it had a few tropes that I like. So this one's called Marrying My Billionaire Boss by Nadia Lee. And this is actually one that like, she's this guy's like assistant. She's had a crush on him for a while. I can't remember totally what happens, but they end up having like a night together and she's pregnant. And then they end up having like a Vegas wedding, like all kind of at once. I don't know. I just remember the baby being a surprise. And then also she ended up married to him because it's called Married to My Billionaire Boss. But it was fun if you like this trope. Then there is Another by Fiona Cole. This is part of her Voyeur series. You can read these out of order. I definitely read them out of order. But specifically Another is about a character that we have seen in a book before. So there's one called Liar, that the main woman in Another is actually engaged to this one man who ends up being gay, and that's kind of what that one is about, or he's bisexual. And so she ends up at another time, because it's all based around the Club Voyeur, and she helps do the marketing for Voyeur or something like that, because that all the books in this series are connected, and some of it is directly with Club Voyeur, and some of it is for other stuff. So she has a one-night stand with a guy and gets pregnant and then doesn't see him for 7 months. So when he ends up being a business partner of Voyeur, she comes into the meeting and she's 7 months pregnant with her one-night stand's baby. And she ended up keeping the baby because I don't know how old I'm not saying she's old, but like she's a little older in life. Like, is she in her 30s? Again, she's not old, but like, she wants this baby because she was expecting to be married to this other guy, and then it didn't happen. And she's like, well, maybe this baby is my chance at a family then, with this random person. And so he ends up being like, she didn't know his name because they had met at Voyeur, and so everything was anonymous. And yes, didn't make the best decisions with their safe sex there. Yeah. But then he ends up wanting to be involved and really kind of digs his claws into being like, I want to be a part of this baby's life and I want to be a part of your life. So I really like that one because that one again kind of skirts the line of like, she didn't know his name and he didn't know her name. So neither of them is like really in the wrong for that, because how could they have done anything? So then I actually own a couple of these. So the next one is called Lies and Lullabies. This is the first in the Hush Note series. This is done by 3 different authors, Sarina, Bowen, Devney Perry, and Rebecca Yarros. And it's all about a band. And this one is about the lead singer, whose name is Jonas. And he had spent a summer in this small town in Maine to kind of like get his mojo back. And he made a friend there, and they really had this beautiful friendship. And at the end of the summer, they ended up sleeping together because she had actually been assaulted and he was her friend. And I mean, obviously he was attracted to her too, but he was helping her kind of get over it and show that sex was really beautiful. And then he went back to his life, and she had no idea who he was until she started seeing him in Tablet. So this must be the one. I think I was confusing the hockey one with this one because, yes, they're both kind of similar for that. And so this one, she does a little deliberately keep him a secret, just a little bit. But this one worked for me because of how it gets revealed what happened, and then the way that he acts about it. So that's why I really liked it, is like he's angry in some aspects, and he could use his power as a celebrity and all the money that he has to just take his child back. But instead, he goes about really trying to woo her and show her that he would be there for her, even with his hectic rock star schedule. And so this one, again, there's an exception to every rule, as I say. And I think part of it too, what I liked is that she was afraid of her child being in that kind of lifestyle. And like I said, that works for me sometimes. Like if it's mafia or if it's a really crazy situation where the mother is like, I don't want my child put in this place. But in this case, it like hurt because we've seen Jonas and how loving he was. But to her, she felt hurt that he wasn't honest about who he was with her. So when she saw him in tabloids, she's like, I don't want my kid around any of that. So I could see the side. Like I said, there's an exception to every rule. But in general, I wouldn't have liked that. But I did like how the resolution came about and how he treated her and their child once he knew. Just gave me so many feels. It was so beautiful. So I really loved it. And then the last one, I do have one historical romance for this. And I'll be honest, I didn't dig through all my historicals to find it, because generally surprise babies with historicals end up being hidden babies because things need to be so secret. And I'm not a huge fan of that. As I've said, it doesn't work the same way for me that a contemporary one would. But I have Seducing a Stranger. This is, I also have an alternate cover of this one, right? But this is the first in the Good Girl series. So that's why I showed this one. This one is also, there's also a Dark and Stormy Night, and that's a Victorian Rebels book. But this is also the beginning of a new series by her, The Good Girls. And so this one is about, I think this one is Prudence, and she actually goes to this, this like sex club where the women can get pleasure, because she is supposed to get married to this really horrible dude in a couple months who she just thinks that he's kind of slimy, but she's going to do it for her family. And so she goes to this club, and it turns out that Carlton Morley is undercover at this club, and he's not supposed to like sleep with any of the women there. But when he meets Prudence, he's like, I mean, I kind of want to be with this girl. So he ends up being her first. And this all happens in like the first and second chapter, is that she does this, doesn't know who he is, hence Seducing the Stranger. And then he goes back to the job that he was doing, and she goes on to, it's time for her to get married. Fast forward to her wedding day, and her groom gets murdered, and she walks in, and she ends up literally with the bloody knife in her hand and blood all over her wedding dress. And Carlton happens to be at this wedding because he is the chief, what is he? He's a justice, and he's the chief inspector. And Prudence's father is actually a member of the police as well. And so he calls Carlton in to handle this so that there's not a conflict of interest, even though there's totally going to be a conflict of interest. And so she recognizes him, and she's like, oh my God, not only is this the man that I had only a true night of passion with, but she knows at this point that she's pregnant. And so when she gets taken in for interrogation, he recognizes who she is too, knows what's going on. She explains, and then, you know, he obviously thinks that she did this murder because there are a lot of signs that this guy was betraying her father and that she didn't want to marry him. And then, you know, when he gets the information that she's pregnant, he's like, well, maybe this guy found out. But though he's going to try to solve this murder, and he thinks that she did it, he wants her more than he wants justice for this horrible person. So he pretty much like on the spot, like asks her to marry him. And so even though he thinks that she would have done it, he's like, well, my name will protect you. I'm going to try to find out the truth. Just tell me the truth. And she's like, I've told you the truth. But I really loved this one. I thought that the surprise baby of this one worked out really well because she hadn't already had the baby or anything. And I just really love Carlton and Prudence. They made me so happy. I love Kerrigan Byrne, and I love that I could put her on this list. So there you go. There's a list of some of my favorite surprise babies. Again, this is a trope video I didn't know that I would make, but when I looked through my list, I was like, you know what, I think I got a lot of those to make it work. Let me know what you think of this filming location. I still have some space to like add some stuff here. I maybe will like turn the angle more, I don't know, but I wanted to try a different place that may be a bit more sustainable for filming during the day, where like the sun works with me. So we'll see. Thank you so much for watching this. Make sure you check out my recommendations playlist. I have video upon video upon video of pretty much any trope that you can think of. And if there's a trope that you don't see, make sure to leave a comment of which recommendations you'd like. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.